The opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Cable 14, its sponsors, or its shareholders, Cogeco Cable, Shaw Cable, and Source Cable Limited.
Welcome to another edition of Our City. I am your host, Martinus Geleynse. Today we have an interesting show. We're talking about real estate to start the show off. Then we're moving to talking about the resurgence of retail in the lower city. And finally, we're going to wrap it up with a little bit of religion, having faith in the downtown. But starting it off, as I mentioned, is real estate. So in studio with me right now is Shawn Maher, who is developing a very interesting project right in the lower city, in the Corktown neighborhood, actually. So Shawn, welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot, Martinez. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about this project. It's called the Corktowns, and it's right at the corner of Walnut and Yonge Street, but it's a little bit different than your, it's not a condo tower, is it?
It's not a condo tower. These are freehold units. Basically, people are going to have their own unit, self-sufficient, no condo fees. This is a freehold townhouse that we're building with obviously a twist to it.
And there are seven townhomes in a row, I understand, but these are unusually sized townhomes. Can you expand a little bit and tell us a little bit what these things look like?
Well, basically I was in New York City quite a while ago, and I was tripping around the Upper West Side, and I seen these townhouses that were 12 foot wide, and I thought, well, I know this piece of property in Hamilton that would be perfect for something similar. It just so happens that the Corktown development's right on the park. And it's a smaller version of, it's obviously not Central Park, but it really is a great area. And it was really just kind of, when I seen this, I kind of put two and two together, and I said, why don't we bring a project like this to Hamilton? So it is a little bit bigger than your 12-foot units in New York City. These are 12 and a half feet, really.
So 12 feet wide and roughly 43 feet deep.
Around 43 feet, yeah.
And these are pretty tall as well. They're 3 stories?
3 stories, correct.
Yeah. Now we do have an image of these, and we'll just bring that up on the screen. And you can see how New York style these really are. They're a really cool little addition to the landscape. A lot of interesting architecture happening in downtown Hamilton right now. So now your mentor on this project is rather prominent, is he? Can you tell us a little bit about him?
George Ross is the executive vice president to Donald Trump. I was lucky enough to be in a dinner with him in Toronto a couple years back, and I was going down to New York City, and George gave me his card and says, why don't you come by the Trump organization and we'll have a chat. So when I told him what I wanted to do by bringing this project to Hamilton, he basically said, you know, do it. Why don't you put your foot forward and make it happen here? For Hamilton will love you for it. So basically I asked him if he wanted to mentor on the project. He said, yeah, absolutely. He came to Hamilton. We did a charity event at Leuna Station. Laura Babcock helped me out with the project, and it ended up being a very big success. We raised a lot of money for children with cancer, local food banks. So it was a good opportunity. George was really excited about Hamilton. He's actually said if he was younger, he would invest in our city. So I think, you know, going forward, we're really starting to see what's happening with our city right now.
And these properties certainly appear to be a good investment. You've sold how many so far?
We've got 4 sales on the books right now. We're about 70% sold.
So that's a pretty solid start. And now, the location, Corktown. Do you see the Corktown neighborhood really as an up-and-coming area in Hamilton? How would you describe this from an investment point of view?
Well, I'm a big believer in the Corktown neighborhood. I went into that neighborhood just over a year ago. I bought the 8-unit building right next to the development site that I'm doing, 2 doors or 3 doors over from the Corktown pub. It was basically a crack building. It was in real rough shape. There was 1 tenant when I bought the building, and we got it fully tenanted, and we cleaned the building up, and we've got wonderful people living there now, and everybody's, you know, says what a difference in the Corktown neighborhood. So we are seeing a change there. We're seeing property values go up. It is a great neighborhood. There's lots of parks around. There's a brand new school. It really is a great place to live.
And who are the buyers for this sort of a project? Are these young professionals? Are these retirees? Who are we seeing interested in this project?
Right now we got a mix of people. So yeah, some younger people. There's been a couple people that are looking to even buy it to, actually one person just to retire there. So it really is a mix. I think this kind of project would appeal to all different kinds of people for sure.
And now you've added kind of a unique little touch to this. You were telling me in the green room about how you're decorating the lights outside of each of the front doors. What are you putting on these lights?
Well, this project's obviously, it came from New York City, the whole idea. So I'm going to be basically welding these little New York style, actually New York subway tokens, the old brass ones, to the light sconces. You might not notice it, but it's just a little touch. Maybe later on, a couple years from now, someone buys it and they might just notice it, and then they might check the history on the Corktowns and realize, well, this really brought the whole idea from New York City to a great city of Hamilton. So that's where we're at with it.
And Hamilton has stood in for New York in a number of films, probably most notably The Incredible Hulk, when they threw cars around on Main Street and built up big facades. But now we actually have our own project that looks a little bit like New York, but it's by a Hamilton developer, and it's right in Hamilton's Corktown. If people want to find out more about this project and perhaps buy one of the 3 final units left on the market, how do they contact you and where should they look?
There's a couple different ways you can get in touch with us. You can call RE/MAX, which is Cameron Nolan, who's RE/MAX Escarpment, J. Cameron Nolan. You can contact myself, or you can go on info@corktowns.ca, or you can contact Harry Stinson Realty. They're handling the project as well. So there's a lot of avenues for people to get in touch with us. So, or just go to our website, www.corktowns.ca.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shawn, for joining us on the program today. When we come back, we'll be talking with 2 of the heads of downtown BIAs, the Ottawa Street BIA and the International Village BIA, about retail resurgence in the Lower City. Welcome back to Our City. I'm your host, Martinus Geleynse. Today, in our second segment of the show, we're talking about a resurgence in retail in the Lower City. So who better to talk about that than the heads of 2 Lower City BIAs, the Ottawa Street BIA and the International Village BIA. So Patty and Susie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Susie, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us, in International Village, what is the International Village, first of all? Where is it located?
Okay. So it's located in downtown Hamilton. Probably the easiest way to explain it is where the downtown Hamilton arches are. Just east of that is West Avenue. That's where it starts, and it ends at Mary Street. And it takes in Main Street East, King Street East, and King William.
And it's a pretty solid street wall of stores. So there's an awful lot of retail in your district. And then Patty, you are with the Ottawa Street BIA, which is known for fabrics, textiles, and decorating and all kinds of stuff lately, and even food truck festivals lately. So now where is Ottawa Street, if you can tell us?
So Ottawa Street is definitely East End. For those who know Gage Park, that would be a good marker. And our boundary extends from Main Street to Barton Street, ending, ironically, with what we used to know as the Centre Mall, now called the Centre on Barton.
And when people think retail, it's Christmas is around the corner. People might be thinking time to go gift shopping. We might think Limeridge Mall. We might think Ancaster Meadowlands. We might think another one of these smart centers. But there's an awful lot of retail in Lower Hamilton. So what exactly are your vendors, are your retailers offering the Christmas consumer? Susie?
I think what they're offering is a unique shopping experience, Martinus. I think that it's great that you can go to the big box stores and the malls, and I'm not saying to not do that, but I think people are coming back to small business because it offers them, like I say, a unique shopping experience. They can get one-of-a-kind pieces and person-to-person experience in the shopping.
And so what sort of shops can people find when they head to the International Village BIA?
Well, we have a wide range of shops. Obviously, a lot of them are international, but some of the newer ones that we're looking at to attract people down is, for instance, one called Accoutrements, which is a Parisian-themed European shop, and she imports soaps and jewelry and clothes and home decor from Europe, and that really draws a lot of people in. Modify Your Closet, which is a new and used consignment store, and she offers amazing pieces for men and women in all sizes, which is great. Right down to J.H. Gordon Books, which is our newest addition. It's a new and used bookstore. And all of these stores are really unique and beautiful inside, and it's just important that people come downtown and check it out this season.
And Patty, when people head over to Ottawa Street, what are they going to find?
Well, of course, what they're going to find is the same sorts of things that Susie's just alluded to. But I think the interesting part of Ottawa Street is that the stores have become quite eclectic and quite a mix. So that not only are we talking fabrics and textiles, but now we're talking home decor, we're talking great restaurants while we're shopping, we're talking about art and art-related pieces. So I think that the challenge for small business is to make sure that during the Christmas season, they're offering things that perhaps you can't find other places, perhaps you can't find in big box stores. And I really think that part of the key is great service, so that that business owner remembers your name, they remember when you were here before, they remember what you bought perhaps, and that you can't get anywhere else but from our small businesses in BIAs across the city, for that matter.
And with Christmas around the corner, what's the Ottawa Street BIA currently doing? I know actually today is an interesting day because you just released a brand new campaign. So perhaps you can tell us about that.
Yeah, we released a brand new campaign. We've just launched our new website and all of our new branding. So a new logo, a new website at shopottawastreet.com, if I can put in a plug. Our new campaign today is called What Will You Create Today? So we have 5 Hamilton familiar faces, people who are coming to Ottawa Street, and they've sourced items for projects for their own homes or for their own gifting. So they're sort of DIY novices, and they're going to be creating a piece from things that they can find on the street. They'll be finishing those projects the end of the week, and then we'll have a voting period next week for anyone who wishes to vote for their favorite project, and they're competing for a donation to their favorite charity. Following the famous faces, our own stores will be also doing the same thing. So how are you coming to Ottawa Street and feeling inspired and feeling creative? This is how we're feeling inspired and creative. Send us your pictures, even if you're not on the street. If you bought art and you put it up at home, send us where you've put it, how you've integrated that into your home or into your office world. And we're really excited to be launching that campaign, ironically, today.
It's perfect timing.
It is.
And Susie, what's the International Village BIA doing for Christmas?
We have an event on December 7th called A Victorian Night in the Village that takes place from 7 till 9 p.m. It happens right after the Gore Park tree lighting ceremony. And what it is basically a reason for people to come downtown. If you haven't been downtown in a couple years and you're curious to what's going on, this is a really great night to engage in that. We'll have free horse and buggy rides all across the BIA, Victorian carolers from the Bach Elgar Choir, free hot apple cider, and the stores and restaurants will be offering sales from 7 till 9 p.m.
So it's certainly a festive feeling. And it should be said, too, that Westdale and Locke Street and James Street North and James Street South and the downtown BA, there at Barton Street, there are so many different shopping districts in the downtown, and these are largely represented by BIAs.
They
so
are, absolutely.
Are you, and I'll throw this out to either one of you who wants to jump in, are you seeing downtown, lower city, is there a resurgence in retail, or is this something we all are kind of hoping for? But
there is definitely a resurgence. I think what's important to understand here is that what BIAs try to typically do is change buying habits and buying patterns. So we would issue a challenge to Hamiltonians and those afar to say, for those of you who tend to head to the malls and tend to head to big box, there's nothing wrong with that, and they have their place. But we would issue a challenge to give yourself a chance to to see some of your small business districts and give them an opportunity to try, and even if it's just one thing that you do during the Christmas season, that you do to support your small business retailer, because they have a lot to offer, and we would like to see everybody just change their habit a little bit. We have to keep these people in business. They're the hub and the heart of our city, and this is a great way to do it and a great season to show your support. Susie, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, these people have invested their livelihoods into these businesses, and it's important that we support them. They are the backbone of this economy in Hamilton. And just a reminder as well, there is free parking in downtown from November 24th to December 24th. So another reason to get down there. And I would just encourage anybody that hasn't been downtown, take an afternoon on a Saturday and come down for an hour or two. And I'm sure you'll be very surprised with what you're seeing.
There really is a changing face, a changing tide, and I would go so far as to then say, after what you've said, there is a resurgence in retail in the downtown as a whole. So you heard it, come on down, shop Auto Street, shop the International Village, BIA, shop downtown, and you'll find some amazing stuff. You'll have a great time. Thank you to both of you for coming on our city. Thanks for joining us. Next, we're going to be talking about faith in the downtown. Welcome back to Our City. I'm your host, Martinus Geleynse. This is our third and final segment of the show today, and now we're talking religion. More specifically, we're talking about the faith in the downtown. And we have it on the screen, faith ... in the downtown, because we're talking about how faith affects how we interact with our downtown. So today in studio, I have joining me Kevin Makins, who's the pastor at Eucharist Church, and I have Christopher Cutler, a familiar face. He was here in our last episode. He's an accessibility advocate, and he is a professing Quaker. Or, Chris, what did you say a minute ago? It's
the Religious Society of Friends.
There you go, the Religious Society of Friends.
Otherwise known as Quakers.
It's a cool term. It's a really cool term. So, Kevin, I'm going to throw it to you.
Sure, yeah.
As a man of faith, as a pastor, you pastor Eucharist Church, which is a Christian congregation, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Now, can you explain what is Eucharist Church?
I mean, Eucharist Church is a pretty simple, ordinary Christian church of people, but we decided to specifically put ourselves in the middle of the city. So we started by Gage Park, and now we've moved down to James Street South, but we've always wanted to be right downtown in the city, and that's been part of our identity from the beginning.
And why is that important to you? If it's a church, typically churches have large walls, a big steeple, and people go in there and worship. But why is the location of your church important to you and your congregation?
Yeah, I mean, for us, part of our identity from the beginning has been trying to follow in the Jesus model as Christians. And so what we learned about Jesus is that the basic idea in the Gospels, in the New Testament of the Bible, is that he's God with flesh on. He's God putting on flesh and becoming human. It's God's way of moving into the neighborhood. And Christians and theologians have called this the incarnation. So the idea that you don't just come somewhere to help those people over there and then kind of go back to your nice, safe place somewhere else, but you want to go and not just help somebody, but be neighbors with somebody. And so from the beginning, our idea was to try and take that literally and to try to plant ourselves in neighborhoods and become part of those neighborhoods and serve them in the way that we feel Jesus served us.
And Chris, you're rather planted in the downtown. You're a well-known fixture in the downtown. What does that mean to you? How does your faith influence where you are?
Well, I like to think that it's my faith that informs how I interact with people. So for us as Quakers, as members of the Society of Friends, we were admonished by the founder of our faith, George Fox, to look for that of God in everyone. So this idea that there's this divine spark in everyone we encounter. So when I'm downtown and I encounter individuals who are perhaps street involved, and sometimes I hear criticisms about people who might be hanging out in Gore Park or on the streets of Hamilton, I often know their names. I often know their stories. I know Johnny, who you often will see down at Jackson Square, or now he's in King Street East, or Tommy, who will be in the morning outside of the Royal Connaught. I know these people, I know their names, and I think it's my faith that there is a divine spark in each of us, regardless of our circumstances, of our failings, or of our successes, that really informs how I interact with the people in the downtown.
And Kevin, at Eucharist Church, is it a large church? Are there many of you?
Not a particularly large church. I mean, we started about 2.5 years ago, coming up on that, and it's not a large church. It's not a particularly small church. I mean, we are just trying to be faithfully present there. So, you know, one of the more interesting things about the church, it's not very large, but one of the cool things is nearly everyone in the church lives within a 15-minute bike ride of where we meet. And so because of that, we've had people kind of making connections in the neighborhoods and being able to be present there and serving there in intentional kinds of ways. And so that's, you know, maybe more interesting than the size of the group or even where we meet, is just the fact that so many of us live in this proximity. And so it's been really cool for exploring how to engage in service together in the city.
When I ask about the size, because you seem to hear a lot about Eucharist Church. I've seen posters for events you folks you are running at various pubs and stuff downtown, and I've seen your name and I've seen your people around a lot. So it seems that you are, like Chris is saying, quite active in the downtown. And now, do you do this? Is it structured? Are there programs, or is this something that you simply are compelled as individuals to do? How does that play out? Yeah,
I mean, we believe that doing things together is better than doing them on our own. And so things are rarely, you know, Kevin's idea or one other person's idea. It usually comes about as these groups of people in neighborhoods who are connected to this church decide, hey, you know, it'd be great, like if we got some people together and we prayed over these bikes and we blessed them, because, you know, the roads are unsafe and we have no two-way streets, that we should just pray for safety, and people will gather around that idea and pull it off together. And so part of that incarnating and being present in these neighborhoods means that people get a good idea of what needs to happen to make that part of the city a better place, because they're a part of that neighborhood. And so, you know, we just try to be as present as we can. We don't have a lot of programs or things run out of a building somewhere. We tend to just try to say, you know, let's be present, let's be neighbors, and let's work with our neighbors to pull things together that we think build up the city.
And Chris, when we think of faith, we think of religion. There's a lot of conflict associated with faith too often. Now, you just got back from Peace Conference. In fact, literally, you haven't even gotten home yet. You stopped at the studio on the way back. Can you explain how you work with other faith groups across faith lines with different people to achieve goals of peace?
Well, I just want to remark, Martinus, you and I are involved in a lot of urban core issues, and I've got to say I'm really pleased to see that Kevin and his congregation, the Eucharist Church, are probably doing more through their prayers on behalf of two-way street conversion than City Council. So I'm really glad to see his faith manifesting itself.
I can't speak for everybody in Eucharist, but I can say that most of us don't like getting hit by cars. So
I'm really glad to see that. No, you're right. I just returned from a conference, the annual general meeting and conference of the Canadian Peace Initiative, which is working towards a Canadian Department of Peace. And we have Quakers involved in that. We have Baptists, we have Hindu, we have people that cut across all faith lines. And really, because there's a commonality, there's a goal of wanting to restore Canada's role in peacemaking in the world. Mm-hmm. We have a rich, deep heritage of peacekeeping, but really people don't realize that we're lucky if we have a half dozen to a dozen personnel involved in peacekeeping missions in the world today. But I think that when I look at how faith has informed my life, it's interesting. You know, by the time I was 21, Martinez said I had run for the provincial legislature and had been the minister of a congregation in the south of France. So those things kind of worked hand in hand. And when I look at my role models in the world today, Professor Dick Preston, Professor Emeritus at McMaster, who's a Quaker, who really got me involved in the Canadian Peace Initiative, a giant of a man, both in size but in heart and intellect, who really a man of faith. But you know, he's taught me that you don't have a worship service on a Sunday. Service begins when you leave the meeting. And so the projection of your faith into the community. Or someone like Ann Pearson, who's a professor at McMaster University in religious studies and teaches world religion there, who is a Baha'i, and has really taught me the importance, as in her role as the chair of the Interfaith Hamilton Group, taught me the importance of getting people together at the table that come from various faith beliefs. And I want to say that I think that even those activists in the city, in the urban core, who might not see themselves as being attached to a faith, who might be agnostic or even atheist, actually do exercise faith because they engage as volunteers in the community, Martinus and Kevin, I think, because they have a faith in each other. They may not have a faith in God, they may not have a faith in religion per se, but they believe that the efforts that they make with each other, with their neighbors, with the community, will result in something positive. And that's still faith. Now, they might take umbrage of that and say, you know, that's not the kind of faith you're talking about, Chris. I don't believe in a divine being or God or any kind of religious trappings or whatever way they perceive religion. But I do believe it's their faith in each other, in humanity, and in the success of what they're doing, changing our city. And I've got to wrap it up right there, Chris. Thank you so much, Kevin, Chris, for joining us today on Our City. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Once again, I'm your host, Martinus Geleynse. Have a good night.